Hello. I thought I would just riff for a little bit about non-duality and just kind of try and lay out some kind of conceptual understanding of sort of um, where I'm up to with it. Um, so what would I say? I'm imagining someone's asking me, what's non-duality, Hamish? What do you understand by that? Um, so actually the words don't really make sense to me when I even think about the words. I don't know what that's pointing to. It's a strange kind of way to describe something as what it's not. So I'm going to be honest, I don't really get it. But yeah, it I've heard it described as the lack of self and other, the collapse of the duality, the collapse of the energetic paradigm of there being someone in that body and someone in this body. That separateness, that two-ness can seem to collapse. And it hasn't collapsed here. So I'm not really qualified to speak about this, you could say. But I can sort of taste it a little bit sometimes, I feel. And so this is the part of it that I do understand. Well, that resonates, let's just say. And so I'm much more comfortable talking about it like this. And that is that there seemed to be a real deep-seated somatic desire in the stomach for something for as long as I can remember. There seemed to be a need for someone to put a blanket over me or give me something or fulfill me, or the sense that something is wrong was just like, it was so integral to the structure of the body. Something's wrong. And it's amazing to think back to my teenage years, and where there was already a lot of suffering and confusion and a lot of suffering and just seeking escape and not being able to sit still and just agitation. And even though I was always described as a very kind of laid back guy, I think I just had that demeanor, but interiorly there was just this awful, I don't know, sense of I can't live like this, or I can't do this. This is too much. I can't cope with, going to school and showing up, not really knowing who I am, not really being able to understand myself, not really. Everything was just so edgy, like I'm on edge all the time. And then this deep fear in the belly, just this existential fear that I actually remember feeling that existential fear in the belly when I was going to school when I was 4 years old. Just this terror. Yeah. So that has accompanied me like throughout most of my life. And then there was a tricky phase when I was a teenager where I nearly was like, I don't know if I want to live like this. But I managed to plow on, it seems. And then in my early 20s, it was kind of like I went to drama school, and it was actually it was like 18 when I went to drama school. But let's say around my 20s, me and my friends kind of went through our own mini version of the 60s, where suddenly I was coming out of my shell and I was listening to music, and the psychedelics involved, and weed, and listening to the Beatles, and it kind of felt like I went through on a personal level what culture must have gone through on a collective level in the 60s, that just sense of wonder and freedom and color, and suddenly everyone's just loosening up, So I started to loosen up. The insane contraction that I was being, the feeling of being smothered in a shell, like an impenetrable nut. That nut was starting to crack, and little holes that were sensed as freedom began to pierce that shell. And I had some psychedelic experiences. And for someone who was so uptight, so reserved, so closed off, like I felt like I was wrapped in like 50 straitjackets, then to have a psychedelic experience, an experience of freedom, of spontaneity, a freedom from the just torturous overthinking, and suddenly an awareness of the sense reality, it blew my mind. So as you can imagine, I became the psychedelic guy for a while. I was the mushroom guy. I was like, I love this stuff. Of course, I love this stuff. And then, of course, well, the next few trips that I had, I kind of went to hell. I went to hell and back, and I've had some, oh my God, some trips that were just in the fetal position, existential, everything, thinking that I'm dying, listening to YouTube videos about people trying to, what to do when you're having a bad trip, people talking me out of it. But because there was such a passion for this freedom that I felt I discovered, I would just keep doing it. I mean, I would go insane, and then a few months later, I'd be like, right, I'm ready to go again, So I just felt like I was pushing against the boundaries of reality, regardless of fear. I would just like take way too much. And eventually I calmed down. And now when I approach psychedelics, it's much more respectful, and it's much more ceremonial. But I just used to be a bit nuts. But so around that time, I also came across Buddhism, and that psychedelic experience. That first one just opened my mind to other possibilities that I just hadn't considered. Suddenly there seemed to be something other than the strongholds of my mind. And so I was investigating. I was investigating into Buddhism also. And then I came across Eckhart Tolle's books. And that was like another massive curveball. That was like my first psychedelic trip. It was just another sort of pivotal, seemingly pivotal moment in this apparent continuum that is Hamish's life. There were several pivotal moments, that being one of them. And around this time as well, it's so funny, looking back, because it felt almost like that I was already beginning to experience Kundalini in a sense, because I was just becoming aware of all this darkness in me, or that somehow had gone unaddressed and unacknowledged. And during one of my trips, I remember I was having this beautiful trip, and I suddenly became aware of this shadow stuff, this layers upon layers of suffering, unacknowledged, unexpressed, repressed stuff in my stomach. And I remember being angry or like pissed off that this had gone somehow. How have I not known about this? And I remember crying and raging, and I was sort of grabbing into my stomach and banging on my friend's coffee table, much to their surprise. And I was just going, "Get it out! Get it out! Get it out!" And I was raging. I was like, "What is all this?" So yeah, there was a part of me that was just really, really angry. How could this be in me? And how have I been avoiding this for so long? For so long. How have I not had therapy? How have I been living like this, just walking around, with this? And so around that time, things started to come out and be addressed, but I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think, oh, I'm on a spiritual path. I didn't know what Kundalini was. I just didn't think about it like that because I didn't know. I just wasn't thinking like that. But I was just becoming more aware that there was darkness in me, and there was times where I remember looking in the mirror, crying, kind of thinking, just my sense of self seemed to be changing. I don't really know who I am anymore. And then what I was experiencing over time seemed to me just more freedom, just more relaxation, just a bit more of an okayness with being who I was. I didn't really know who I was, but just certain masks seemed to be dropping. And then I came across non-duality a little bit later on, a lot later on. And then this energy, this Kundalini energy, began to be released. And it all just seems like an extension of what was happening back there. It just, to me, it just all looks like the unavoidable expansion of an atom that was just so contracted. If you squash something down to an infinitesimal gravitational point, and you squeeze and you keep squeezing. When you release a valve, it's just, it all has to come out. It all, you can't do it anymore. So the expansion seems to be an equal and opposite reaction to just a huge amount of contraction, which is suffering. That's the sort of how I like to conceptualize what's happening. But it is just, ultimately, I think it is just a sort of poetic way of talking about it, metaphorical. So I don't know, maybe there was a passion after that moment when I was banging on the table just to get it all out. There was a passion there suddenly, a kind of an aggressive almost approach to just ridding the system of all that which had been holding it back. But it was all happening automatically. I didn't, and some things are only clear looking back. So non-duality, like I said at the beginning, I don't understand even the meaning of those words, what it means, what I don't know what other people are experiencing. But I can say that there seemed to be, and again, my experience of awakening is just very somatic, very physical. So maybe I don't need the understanding. But there seemed to be a real tension in the stomach that it was continuously asking for a better experience. This kind of sad, deep-rooted, ancient, always there for so long that it became normal that it was there and wasn't even not acknowledged, because it was so normal to walk around with a great big vice, in the belly. And this vice in the belly was just saying no to whatever's happening. You need to fix this by getting sex or an ice cream or job, or maybe if everyone's happy with me, this will disappear, or what do I do about it? Something needs to happen here. And this was all going on an unconscious level. It was only recently that I started sort of talking like this. And then, of course, one of the aspects of non-duality, one thing that it touches upon, is this notion that there is this seeking energy, this seeking for fulfillment in future. And I heard that kind of sunk in, this notion that what I'm looking for, not on a superficial level, but on a deep-seated, like this deep-seated longing for home, I really resonate with that. And then I heard that could it be that the deepest longing is already fulfilled? I mean, if there is no future, it couldn't be fulfilled in the future, right? I mean, the future appears as a concept. It's ephemeral, right? And when it seems to arrive, it's just this. So again, there's still that there's still that need for the mirage. In the mirage, I will find stability in the mirage. And I started becoming aware of it's like, shit, man, if there is no, like, what am I actually looking for? You know, I started getting honest with myself. What would actually do it? What would the ultimate be, you know? And I love what Jim Carrey said about wishing that everyone would fulfill their deepest desires in a material way, that to realize that that wasn't it, you know. And he said he still wasn't, he had everything at his fingertips, and he wasn't happy. So that just, you know, it just knocks your socks off. It's like, well, what is it then? What is it then? What's it gonna be? You know, what is it gonna be? And so it started to dawn on me that shit, there isn't anything that's gonna fulfill that sense of lack. Because the sense of lack is not based in reality. It's based on the fictitious notion that somebody needs fulfillment, or that fulfillment is elsewhere rather than it appearing as whatever this is. So that aspect of non-duality I can talk about, because energetically that's what seems to have happened. That energy of needing the next began to recede the more I contemplated this. It just seemed to sort of start receding, losing momentum. And the non-dual message, non-duality, for a while became just another carrot. That if I this is the thing now that I need to understand, that I need to satiate the sense of lack. And so I wrestled with that then for a while. And now it's just like I say, I don't understand the concept still, and I still don't get the message. But because of the recession of that seeking energy, because of the exhaustion of that seeking energy, you start to just not really care. You're like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. So who cares? Who cares? You know, ultimately, who cares? What's it going to give you? What's it going to change? And so what seems to have happened is there's this, I've just become, or the body has just become more comfortable. The vice is gone. The body can relax. That sense of need is effervesced into a kind of whimper. And there is a real delight in just sitting and looking at a tree and doing nothing, you know. And then the body just sort of does what it wants to do in the absence of that needy, controlling energy. The body relaxes, and weird stuff can happen. Surprising things can happen. For one thing, I've noticed that. And also the body can just dance. It can just express. It's free. It's unrestricted all of a sudden. And it has this potential within it that was being squashed. And that can come up. And then there is this feeling almost of being puppeteered by life without that controlling, that sense of desperate need to control. There's just this kind of like leaf in the wind thing going on, where circumstances suddenly seem to work in your favor, paradoxically, because you're no longer so desperately trying to make everything work. The natural intelligence of the body does that for you, does that automatically. when you feel like you need to wee, you go to the toilet. It's not like an issue. It's not like, oh my God, I need to wee. Where should I go? What should I do? Should I hold it in? Should I? This OCD. It's just like, oh, body feels like wee's coming. Body goes to loo. Body wants to do yoga. Body wants to have a chat with someone. You know, there's this somatic intelligence kind of takes over in the absence of that constricted, must get everything right, must control my life feeling. And the relief from that tension that I've been speaking about, it almost seems worth the tension. I don't know if I can say that for sure. But it is such a dropping away of baggage. It's such a feeling of just taking everything off and just, basking in the sunlight. It might have been worth the struggle, but I'm not sure that I can say that. It might have been. And so that's what then seems to happen, this feeling of basking in energy that is already available, that doesn't need to be sought elsewhere. And that's what I feel that most people are doing. We're like little energy batteries that are looking to charge ourselves up in people and things and future and objects. And can I get my juice from this? No, that didn't work. Plug it into that. Plug it into this career or this woman or this, food or drugs, sex, rock and roll. And eventually there's nothing working. So you just stop trying to plug yourself into that which you see as your power source, and realize that the power source is you, is this, is everything. And then whoosh, yes, all this energy can just suddenly be freed up. It's no longer being spent and exhausted in the illusions. So more and more you just come to rest where you are, so to speak. And all the dust that seemed to be in the mind and in the body that was just being, constantly uprooted, can start to seem to settle down in the absence of the wheel, which maybe is the samsaric wheel of need. So that's where I feel like I'm at. That's my sort of understanding of all these things and this process. And like I say, there are other things that I don't understand. But the desire for understanding in order to feel peace has kind of been seen through a little bit, because again, what would that understanding add to me, experientially? Aha, now I've got it, what would it? So you start to let go of even those things. And I like the sentence, the peace that passeth all understanding. So it's not about understanding. The peace that don't give a shit about understanding, Yeah. Anyway, that was nice to get my thoughts clear on that. Thanks for watching.